Welcome to the Provo Library Podcast. I'm Erika Hill. I'm the Community Relations Manager.
I'm Carla Gordon. I'm the Library Director.
And we are here, as usual, in Carla's office, talking about books.
Just books.
Just books.
I just want books this time.
We are going to give ourselves a challenge, which is that we are going to try and talk not a ton.
It's hard sometimes.
It is.
But we have our best books coming up. Not sure if this will come out before or after that, but our best books is one of our favorite. It'll come after. It's one of our favorite events, but like we do 25 books in 25 minutes. And so you have 1 minute to talk about a book. Yeah. And it's kind of a challenge sometimes. Mm-hmm. So we are bringing this challenge to the podcast.
Here we go. So we are going to talk about our favorite 5 books that we read, our favorite 5 from 2024.
Yes.
Not necessarily published in 2024.
Not necessarily published, but also not on my list of things I'm talking about.
Carla doesn't want to talk about things more than once. She will only review a book once.
Yes. Sure. I mean, when I do the best books, like right now, I only have 15 books. Like I read over 100 books, and I only get to talk about 15 at best books. So this is an opportunity to talk about 5 different ones.
5 more. This is why we started the podcast to begin with, really.
It's true. Just talk about more books.
Just talk about more books. More chances to talk about books. So yeah, they could have been published at any time, but we read them in 2024.
Yes.
One of us is more well-rounded a reader than the other of us.
This year. Okay, always. I read lots of things.
You do. Okay. Do you want to go first?
I can go first.
Also, we're keeping score. We've turned it into a competition. Yeah. Whoever gets the most close but not going over, it's Price is Right style book review.
For 1 minute.
For 1 minute.
We can talk about this book in 1 minute. We have someone in the room timing us, so we're going to look to them at the end to see if we're good or bad.
Yep. I'm already calling it. I'm going to lose.
I don't know.
We'll see.
We'll see. Okay, so my first book is called The Scandalous Confessions of Lydia Bennet Witch, which is by Melinda Taub. Okay, you're going to start it. Oh, did you already start it? Not with the title. Title doesn't count. Okay, ready? And, all right, this is a retelling of Pride and Prejudice, obviously. But in this version, Lydia was born with a great deal of natural magical talent. And her most impressive early act of magic occurred when she turned her favorite cat into her older sister, Kitty. So it's just so much fun. Her older sisters just ignore her all the time and she feels lonely. And so her familiar is this cat and she turns her into Kitty, which I love. Wickham is naturally a demon and there is some conflict going on. She's only involved with him because she's trying to save everyone from the wicked Wickham. The wicked Wickham. So don't worry, the story still has Lydia as full of spunk and she's the cutest heroine of her own story. She's spunky, irreverent, and always a little annoyed with her big sisters. So much fun, and there's another one coming out by the same author this year.
There you go.
Did I make it?
She did it.
Aha!
Good job.
Yeah, it was so cute. This is a really, really sweet book. Well, sweet book. It was just fun. It was something I hadn't read something like this in a while. The next one is about Mary.
Who's a necromancer?
Who's a necromancer in the attic. Because if the world is not going to give her a man, she will make one. So that should be good. I don't know. I went through a whole phase of retellings of classics back in the Pride and Prejudice and vampires or zombies or whatever. Anyways, I went through a whole phase. So this kind of reminded me of that. But it was really cute.
I feel like exploring those sisters' stories, I feel like there's a lot of retellings coming out now that are Mary or Lydia or Kitty because Jane and Lizzie
they've been storied out a little bit.
They've been storied out.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like Jo on Little Women.
Everybody wants to be Jo.
Let's
hear about Beth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, what's your first?
Okay. Which one do I want to talk about first? Okay, I'll do this one. So my first one is Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Q. Sutanto. So here we go. When a man drops dead in Vera Wong's tea shop, she decides then and there she will be the most helpful person to the police. Unimpressed with their work at the crime scene and shocked that they did not appreciate her help, she decides she'll solve the murder on her own, and she does this by befriending each suspect, as one does. Vera brings people together and feeds them, and her meddling is top-notch comedy. And I wish I had a Vera in my life to boss me around and solve all my problems and most of my murders. There you go. We did it.
You also did it.
We did it.
I also read this book, but after your recommendation. Actually, I think Brienne. We had several people that read this one, and it's cute.
It is.
It's fun.
I actually, in going through a lot of my reading this year, do you like how we're like absolutely skirting these rules?
Oh yeah.
By
talking about
it for a minute, and then the after party talking about it more. Looking through my reading this year, several themes emerge, and one of them is feisty old people.
Excellent.
This was maybe the first feisty old person book, but there were at least 4. Like, I read this one and Julia Quinn's Rise to Fame, which is kind of a Great British Bake Off.
Sure.
How to Age Disgracefully and The Authenticity Project.
Okay.
Oh,
that's an older one.
It is an older one. I reread it for senior book club.
Oh, okay.
It was a reread. So there you go. Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. We're tied.
My next one is In My Time of Dying, How I Came Face to Face with the Idea of an Afterlife by Sebastian Junger. Okay, here we go. So this, and the part, I don't know if anyone has ever read The Perfect Storm, but the part that I remember the most is his description of what it is like to drown, which was terrifying. It's terrible. So I think it's kind of perfect that this book that he wrote later this last year, he had a near-death experience in 2020. And he's a confirmed atheist. And so when he had a ruptured aneurysm that should have killed him, rushed him to the hospital. He was almost dead, and his dad came to him, who was dead, came to him and said, "Don't worry, everything will be okay. I'll take care of you." And then when he lived through it and he looked back on that experience as an atheist, he didn't know exactly what to do with the whole experience. So it kind of began him on a journey of a lot of science and theology and science, and plus his own autobiographical story. Like, it was just really interesting to see how he came to grips with these experiences. I didn't make it. Was that right? I didn't make it. That's okay. Anyways, it was really, really interesting. I actually listened to several podcasts with him before, and just like how someone that has experienced the supernatural comes to grips with it when they don't believe in anything like that. It was really interesting. Plus, he's such a good writer. I mean, he's written a lot of good things, but Perfect Storm was like the first thing that he was known for. And he'd already talked about death quite a bit in my eyes. So, yeah.
Yeah. That sounds really good.
It was really good.
How does one become a confirmed atheist?
I don't know. I titled him that, but like,
I was going to say, I've seen that used several times in several other publications, and I'm like, is there an application process?
There's a confirmation. I am an atheist. I don't know what the ritual is.
Yeah.
But he was maybe he had confirmed, I don't know.
Does he end the book agnostic? That seems like that's where that would go, is kind of like, I definitely don't believe, and here's these things, but also now I don't know what to think.
Yeah, it's more of, he doesn't come up with a lot of solutions to his question or answers to his questions, but the journey, I think, brings him peace in what he experienced and why he experienced it. Yeah, a little heavier.
That's fascinating.
What's your heavy book?
Oh, sure. I'll go with my heavy book. So my heavy book is not quite that heavy, but it's What Does It Feel Like by Sophie Kinsella. So you might know Sophie Kinsella from her delightful rom-coms. I know that I've recommended several of her books before. But this novella was so short. It was a bit more serious. Though this book is fiction, Sophie Kinsella admits it's her most autobiographical work to date. Eve, the main character in the book, is a successful novelist and wakes up in the hospital with no memory of how she got there. This isn't, however, a meet-cute amnesia book, though I love a good amnesia book. Eve's husband explains that she's had a large malignant brain tumor removed. As she struggles to relearn basic skills like walking, talking, and writing, moments of her life come back to her. This story is told in vignettes, and I wouldn't want it any other way. It was beautiful and heartbreaking, and in the end, I wanted so much more story and so much more for Eve. Yeah, how'd I do? I know. Shoot. I also didn't really think that I would like fully. It's just so much easier.
I know, it
to
is easier to read them.
your writing than.
I mean,
Anyway,
it's easier to read it, but I think it's more fun to just talk about it.
yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. It was my challenge.
So yeah, Sophie Kinsella, this happened to her. She had a malignant brain tumor and like successful writer and had to relearn how to walk, talk, eat. In one of the most charming details of the book, she can't be discharged from the hospital until she can properly make a cup of tea because they're in England and, life skills. And yeah, it's amazing, but also so sad. And just, there were times I was in the car just sobbing, thinking about what would I do if I lost my memories of my children.
Yeah, like her and her family, like just like you're there with kind of all of them and they're all kind of struggling with different ways of how they're dealing with.
And yeah, and there's this moment where like her husband keeps having to explain to her what's happened to her. But it's not charming in a 51st dates way. No. It's like, how many times does this man have to tell his wife that she's had a giant brain tumor removed and has forgotten things, it was a real
poignant. Is that a good word for it?
That is a great word for it.
Sure.
That's one of my 2 Wake Up in the Hospital with No Memory of How You Got There books.
Excellent.
This year.
Yeah.
So, do you have one of those?
No.
No, too bad.
But my next book is called The Fox Wife by Yangsze. I practiced this before. Yangsze Choo.
Sure.
I believe her first book, you may start. Her first book was The Tiger Wife, which I'm second guessing myself now. I'm pretty sure that's right. And which was really good too. This book reminds me a lot of The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivey. I think it's because it takes place cold places as well, and it's very atmospheric and cold, just cold. Anyways, the writing was beautiful, and the landscapes just really come alive. The story relies heavily on Chinese folklore and the belief that foxes are like ghosts that will go out and eat your chi. But they're actually, in this book, they're just shape-shifting creatures who are trying to survive. This story begins when a courtesan is found frozen and a detective is called in to find out what the truth was about her death. But there, as he delves into it, he kind of encounters all these foxes. And so he's very intrigued by it. And the story is also following Snow, a woman with many secrets, who joins the household of the owners of a famous medicine shop. So as she is with this family and kind of adventuring thing, he's out trying to figure out what happens here, and their 2 lives will intersect. And you'll see the history come into it and all the folklore, and it's really just beautiful. Like I said, very atmospheric. I'm just going to use that word again.
Sure.
It was really beautiful. And that's it. Oh, man, I am losing. I did like my last sentence that I wrote and didn't read. This story is full of second chances, the love of a mother, and the beauty of the stories that are passed on between generations.
Oh, that is a good sentence.
But I thought if I didn't say that, I would win, but I didn't. So I might as well just read it.
There you go.
It was really good. It's not like super fast paced, most of it. But again, it's one of those things that you're more reading it for the writing and the
Was it
story.
Originally written in a different language? Do
I
you know,
believe
is it
so.
translated?
I think so.
That's great that it you always worry about translations, like what is lost.
Yeah, I should find out for sure. Yeah. But yeah, I really liked it.
Sounds good.
And I had liked her first one, The Tiger Wife, was really good too. I like how those stories, like they bring in all the folklore, and it's folklore I'm not familiar with at all. And so it's kind of all brand new, but very old.
Yeah. Do you know what I love about talking to you, Carla, is that when we do the things like this, I come away with a list of books to read. I think you have probably read everything that I have read here. So I don't know if talking to me, you ever come away
Well,
with
I mean, that first, or no, what was it that we were talking about that I read? Oh, the Vera Wing.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, that
I read that after you.
After me.
So how?
There you go. There you go.
Okay, what's your third book?
Let's do The Impossible Us by Sarah Lotz, which I read at Carla's recommendation.
This is so good.
It is so good. So, an amazing love story sometimes starts with a typo. When Nick, a flailing writer, accidentally sends a scathing email to B, a flailing dressmaker, their connection is instant. After a series of the most entertaining emails you've ever read, apart from mine, obviously, they decide to meet. So they dress up and they meet each other at the train station and sadly miss each other, but not because either of them got the details wrong, but because they are somehow living in parallel dimensions. So there's just enough science fiction in this book to provide the framework for a story about wanting what you can't have and finding ways to have it anyway. It's interesting and clever and funny and heartbreaking and hopeful. I loved it. How'd I do?
See, you are on fire. So
Yeah.
I loved this book so much. And it was one of
so
those that I
good.
just picked up. I don't even know why I picked it up because I don't think it was on a lot of other people's lists or anything, but I didn't know what to expect. And interdimensional things are sometimes, I mean, it's like time travel. You're always like, are you going to pull this off? But they
really
do.
do.
She really does. She just does such a good job of making you hope for and then kind of believe. And she's consistent in the story and the rules of the, anyway.
Yeah, it's really good. And
So
then
romantic.
there does come a point in the book, though, that you're like, oh, I don't know what to hope for. Like, I don't know what this happy ending looks like because as they start comparing notes of the worlds that they live in, there are subtle differences, as all good parallel dimension stories are. And it's like, oh, I can't just like whole hog jump into that one because this other person doesn't exist, or that like, oh, like there's a window into a life that I could have had and I didn't. And yeah, it's really interesting.
It reminded me a lot of Somewhere in Time. Like it had a lot of that feeling of like this epic romance and you're just not sure how it's going to ever end happy because
dimension, like they're not time crossed, they're dimension crossed.
Anyway,
yeah,
it's really good.
It was good. The Impossible Us. You should read it. It's really good.
All right. I'm going to focus so hard on this one. Okay. The Covenant of Water by Abraham Verghese. So, ready? Okay. This is a big book, which is why I didn't read it the year it was actually published. So I read it later. It's 736 pages and 31 hours long. But I know there's like all these cringes. I know. I don't usually, that's a lot. But it was totally worth it. This is an epic tale that spans 77 years from 1900 to 1977, beginning with the wedding of a 12-year-old girl to her 42-year-old husband, who is a widower. And his family has this kind of water curse that she's trying to figure out. And then it kind of jumps around between different people, kind of focusing on her family. She's the matriarch and the different generations through her family, and then some outside people. And because it's Abraham Verghese, like he did Cutting for Stone. I don't know if you ever read that, but he's a doctor that writes on the side, one book every 5 or 6 years. So there's medicine in it and that, but it is beautiful. It is so much fun. And the people were just great. I'm going to stop. I did it. Okay, I did it. It was long, but every once in a while, a long, epic, multi-generational story. The way she ties it together at the end, I just was crying, but it was beautiful. And all of these, it's one of those where you're not sure how all of these different stories are going to tie back together, but they do beautifully. And then with this undercurrent of like the water, how it ties them all together and how water ties all of us together in different ways. Oh, it's so good.
And that didn't make it on your...
No, because it was published in 2023, I believe, and I read it in 2024. Oh. So I lose those. I know. And to read a 31-hour one in a year when I can't use it in best books.
That means that was a good book.
It means I really like Cutting for Stone was also really, really good. Like he's a really good author, but he writes very big books and not very many of them.
Well, when
he's a doctor
practicing medicine, I guess.
I mean, whatever.
Sure. I guess it's a valuable life skill. Okay. Speaking of doctors and people who need them.
Okay.
Nice segue. My next book is Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. So I read so many rom-coms this year. So many. But I think this one is my favorite. In Hello Stranger, Sadie is a portrait painter with a problem. She's been in an accident and wakes up in the hospital to find out she has probably temporary face blindness. So now she finds herself in a strange new world where she can't recognize people by their faces, but she's still got to find a way to compete in this prestigious portrait competition she applied for. I'm not usually a fan of a love triangle, but the love triangle between Sadie, her vet, she's got a ailing dog, and her obnoxious neighbor is probably my favorite love triangle ever. So, Hello, Stranger by Catherine Center. It's very good.
Every time.
It's because I'm reading them too.
I haven't read that book.
Really?
I didn't read that one.
Oh, it's fun. The next time you need just a fun book, you should read that one.
Skip the 731 page one.
Skip the 731 page one. Skip, like, I'm reading The Anxious Generation right now.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's interesting, but it is not fun.
No.
You need something fun. Hello, Stranger is really... Have you read any Catherine Center?
Oh, I don't know.
Things You Save in a Fire?
No.
The Rom-Commers?
Yes. I read the Rom-Commers.
The Rom-Commers is good, too.
That was a good one.
I also read that this year.
Okay.
So, I don't know. Catherine Center, it took me a little while to, like, I don't know. She writes a kind of woman that I don't necessarily always relate to. Like, Things You Save in a Fire and The Bodyguard are both like, I'm a firefighter, I'm a bodyguard. Like, I'm like, I am occasionally doing yoga. Like, I don't always completely relate to, like, her sort of tough girl characters. But this one was great. So there you go.
All right. Here's my last one. I felt like, I guess In My Time of Dying was kind of a memoir, but this is a solid memoir, which last year honestly wasn't great for memoirs.
No.
There were some fine ones.
I don't think I read any.
I read like Henry Winkler's. I read the guy that played Lando in Billy D something. Anyways, obviously it really made an impression on me. Anyway, there were just like, there were some. There weren't a lot of really great ones. But I did read, here we are, Cher Part 1 by Cher. So it's a first of a 2-volume Cher memoir written by Cher herself and read by Cher. She did a great job reading it, not like Barbra Streisand, who read way too slow. Cher was good. So she really was a remarkable individual. I don't know a lot about her because I don't do music and stuff, but she lived a crazy life. And it was fun to listen to it. She grew up dreaming of being famous, but in kind of a chaotic home and atmosphere. And then she started her career, met Sonny, and then that whole chaos, which I just didn't really even know the story of it. And so it was fun to listen to it. Well, I don't connect with her a whole lot. Like, her reaction to situations she was in, I could connect to that. Like, I'd be like, yeah, that's crazy. And I probably would have done something similar if I was in that situation. So she was, like I said, very relatable. It's well written. She tells her story really well, and it's very conversational. It's kind of long, but it was really good. I'm glad it's 2 volumes because I couldn't have committed to that much in one. That's the end.
Did you do it?
Oh my gosh.
Oh no!
Seriously, it's because I chat and not read.
Right. Does she believe in life after love? That's a Cher song.
It is.
Sorry.
See, I just don't. Music is not my world. My world is books and the Descendants songs that my daughter listens to. Like, it's not a happy life as far as music goes. It's fine. I try. Anyways, I can still appreciate her story without knowing all of her music. It was fun to hear about, like, her costuming and that for the Sonny and Cher show where, like, it was intense.
I just picture her in, and I should say that I just named one of, did they do I've Got You, Babe? Is that also Sonny and Cher? So now I have listed, like, the 2.
Okay, that you know.
Yeah,
okay,
so I made it seem as if I have such this rich musical life.
It's fine. It was the best memoir I read last year.
Cool.
There weren't a lot of good ones. So
No.
It's fine.
Like I said, I started, nope, that was this year. Ina Garten was this year.
Oh, yeah. You didn't finish it?
No.
Well, that's fine.
It's because it's that curse of, like, when you have always available access to something.
I'll get to it later.
Yeah. Like, I don't have to finish this right now because
The book club is over.
The book club is over, and I can listen to it any time. But I did get far enough in that I feel like I should commit to finishing it.
Okay.
Just to have not wasted
It was fine.
that time. Yeah, that's fine. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about Be Ready When the Luck Happens by Ina Garten.
Talking about something else.
I am. And again, in a, like, this is a weird... So I just talked about Hello Stranger.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to talk about Hello Beautiful by Ann Napolitano. So here we go. I find it hard to know how to pitch this book in 1 minute. This book isn't really based on, but reminded me so much of all the reasons that I love Little Women. There's a family of sisters, each with their strengths and weaknesses and hopes and dreams. There's a man with a troubled past who finds love and acceptance in their big, loving family. And there are rifts and secrets and dreams thwarted and realized. It makes us question what a truly happy ending looks like, while still affirming that happy endings are possible when we're led by love. It was a roller coaster of a book that addressed love, loyalty, mental illness, authenticity, and more themes I don't even have time to get to. I loved this book.
Yeah.
How'd I do?
Yeah. Okay, you're 5 to 3. Like that was
also,
bad.
I will say for
I only
this
got
one
2.
that I said a lot of words, but didn't actually like say what it was about, because it's actually hard to know what to say. It's about a family.
It is. It's a very much a family relationship drama.
Yeah. Not everyone in our book club loved it.
Did
Right?
they not? I feel like most people did. There might have been some people that didn't get into it, maybe.
Yeah. I loved it.
I loved it. I felt like everybody that talks about it talks not very much about their dad. And I felt like their dad was a big part of what I loved about parts of it. Anyways, just the family itself and the relationships between sisters. And I tried to read a new book and I don't remember what it was called. The Blue Sisters. And I was hoping it would be something like that. And I just couldn't even like finish that one because it was terrible. But
I didn't even start it.
Well,
because you told me not to.
Don't waste your time. But I wanted something like this where the sisters actually do love each other and care for each other, and they grow and they change. And it was beautiful.
Like I said, it did for me as an adult what Little Women did for me as a younger person. Just this idea of exploring different relationships, and you think you want one thing and then it turns out that Lori is just not right for Joe. Yeah. Despite what Winona Ryder makes you think. Winona Ryder and Christian Bale, like, they are not right for each other.
No.
Timothée Chalamet and Florence Pugh are.
So you read that book, not just watch all the video remakes. Okay.
I did.
That's fine.
It's a multifaceted. I love all the versions,
of course,
of Little Women. Okay, we did it. Isn't that amazing that we just turned 10 minutes of book pitching into probably 25 minutes of show?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, that's good TV. Do we want to talk about what we are currently reading, or are we recommended out?
I don't remember. I think I'm actually between books
I am
at
a
the
little
moment.
bit between books.
So let's just leave it at the 10.
10 is a fine number. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back again soon.